Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Windward Buddhist Temple's virtual Dharma service. This morning, we'll be observing the Fall Ohigan. We'll start the service with the Vandana Ti-Sarana. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samman sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namandao, it's Namandao, it's Namandao, Namandao. The sutra for today is Sanbutsuge. This is found on page 47 of your red service book. Namandao, 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 Namandao. Hose, Tokubus, 시간 이사이 그그 이사나양 해시업은 야그센노그만 머려나이쇼 신여고자 그여이사이 시도쇼은 근여근어 갱쇼 푸격 인여고냐 쇼문생아이 버프가게 머시어센노 고묘시쇼 헨시쇼곡 뇨세쇼징 이진난요룡아사번 고근오나이 고셔기묘 도조조셋 고근요나영 니무도송 가노아이밍 노나즈이사이 지뽀라이쇼 신냉쇼려 이도가곡 계랑완농 고문식묘 생아싱쇼 호츠강노히 리히쇼쇼역 지보세송 지혜문예 조려시송 징아싱역 계려싱시 종은어그주 가려쇼징 닌주푸게
The recitation for today is Homages. This is found on page 2 of the Red Service book. Hard it is to be born into human life. Now we are living in it. Difficult it is to hear the teachings of the Blessed One, and now we hear them. If we do not gain emancipation in this present life, we may not be free from ill-faring in the ocean of births and deaths for kalpas. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures. We go to the Buddha for guidance, but we always walk in the way that leads to enlightenment. We go to the Dharma for guidance. May we be submerged in the depth of the teachings and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. We go to the Sangha for guidance. May we all with one accord live the life of harmony in the spirit of oneness, free from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriads of kalpas, hard it is to hear such excellent and profound teachings. Now we are able to hear and receive them. Let us reverently take refuge in the Tathagata's teachings. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, good morning again, everyone, and thank you for coming together with us this morning, although it's through the magic of the electronic world that we do so. As some of you know, many years ago, I was assigned to the Kapolei Buddhist Sangha, where services were held at a private school in Barbers Point. Sometimes for a change of pace, or when the school was not available, we held services in the park under a tree. It was fun, although at times we were in competition with the dogs for a tree, not to mention the birds above. And I am often reminded of those past years because, as in this pandemic, we had to adjust and live life as it is, so to speak. You know, there was a famous Zen monk by the name of Ryokan who wrote a haiku that read, "Show in front, show in back. Maple leaves fall." So we learned the Dharma there of awareness and naturalness, life as it is, sonomama, in its truth and totality. Will you please join me now in reverence, putting your hands together as I read these words. The ocean of birth and death of painful existence has no bound. Only by the ship of Amida's universal vow can we who have long been drowning unfailingly be brought across it. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, today, for the next few days of the month, throughout the month, we're observing Ohigan. Ohigan is one of the few religious holidays that did not originate with Shakyamuni Buddha. It arose in the Heian period, around 794 to 1200, presumably from the time of Prince Shotoku. And so it is distinctly a Japanese observance, although it is observed by many, many cultures in some form throughout the world. It is a time when the length of day and length of night are equal. It is the vernal equinox, when both day and night are equal in light, and the world feels in balance and in comfortable harmony. In astronomy, Ohigan is a day when the sun rises directly from the east and sets directly in the west. So this is supposed to be the most comfortable time of the year. It is also the most exciting time of the year, but we can only reminisce of seasons past, of hot dogs and beer, homespun barbecues and musubis, the aroma of all the local grinds being cooked in an open fire. Although college football is played on a limited basis, it will not be the same. And we are told that high school football may occur in the spring. But somehow, peanuts and Cracker Jacks may seem odd at a football game, if you know what I mean. It will be different this year, as we maybe can only envision the glorious and magnificent colors of the fall on YouTube, as will be Halloween and Thanksgiving and the rest of the holiday season as well. It will be last year's memory. But we will adjust, as mankind has done throughout its history. But how grateful we are to be alive and to witness the unfolding of our personal bonno, and to remind ourselves of the wisdom and compassion that is Amida Buddha. So this equinox appears again in the spring. In crossing over this wide sea of illusion and arriving at the other shore of nirvana,
The 6 paramitas serves as a bridge spanning this wide sea. The 6 paramitas are, as you know, the first is dana, or selfless giving. And this can be by way of material goods or with the teachings of the Buddha Dharma. It can also be by way of standing by others to protect and support them. It is giving to others with no expectation of anything in return, not even an acknowledgement of a thank you or appreciation. But once it's given, it is done with. The second of the paramitas is self-discipline, or sila. Here we try to give up what is not good and try to develop what is good, not only for ourselves, but of all life itself. The third, patience, or shanti. And this is characterized by forbearance under adverse conditions, such as injuries and other forms of suffering. The fourth is effort, or virya. It is an armor against temptations and hardships. It is also diligence to continue to practice the other 5 paramitas. Fifth is meditation, or dhyana. This is for deepening the degrees of concentration and awareness. Meditation is to keep one's mind always calm. By practicing these 5s, one can attain wisdom to see things as they really are. Therefore, the 6th paramita is wisdom, or prajna. By practicing the 6 paramitas, we can reach the other shore of enlightenment. For us, however, we should reflect on the 6 paramitas of dana, discipline, patience, effort, meditation, wisdom, and consider how these 6 perfections through upaya, or skillful means, Amida Buddha makes us see how things as they really are, and that therefore are able to express and realize harmony in our lives. In Mahayana Buddhism, though we may think that we have to overcome harmony in our lives, our real intention should be the awakening by our intention to follow the Buddhist way of life, which is the happiness of all beings. So there is the need to cross over from our limited and selfish way of thinking to the other shore of the enlightened way of seeing things. There is a famous story about a person in ancient China who was trying very hard to cross over to become enlightened. He was a spiritual seeker, and he went from temple to temple across all of China to seek and to search for a teacher from whom he could hear the true teaching. But wherever he went, whatever he heard did not satisfy him. He heard from teachers that told him the only way to attain enlightenment was to become a very good person. But he had no idea how to become this very good person, even though he tried very hard. Some of the teachers would tell him that he had to practice lots and lots of meditation or to give tons of money to the temple. But that didn't sound right to him, because during those days, most people barely had enough time to grow the food that they needed to stay alive, let alone have time for meditation. And they certainly didn't have a whole lot of money to give to the temple. He also met teachers who said that he had to become perfect or he will be punished in the next life. But none of those answers seemed right to him. This seeker had already learned a lot of Buddhist teachings and doctrines, but mere words didn't answer his questions either. He knew that there were lots of ways people said that you could cross over to the other shore to become enlightened, but which was the right way? And how could he be sure that he was following it? And so he really wanted to learn the absolute truth and the absolute right way to cross over from this world of delusion and selfishness to the other shore of enlightenment, or nirvana, a teaching that was really the truth. But he was totally confused from all the teachers he met that seemed to contradict one another. It also seemed to him that all those teachings were theoretical, since none of them that he had listened to actually had crossed over themselves. They didn't appear to be enlightened. They certainly had not gone to the Pure Land themselves.
And so he vowed that he would not rest until he found a final and true answer. But one day he heard about a famous teacher who lived in a faraway temple beyond mountains far away. There were many, many rumors circulating around the area that this teacher was not like all the other Buddhist masters. They told him that this teaching was very simple and that no one who met him remained confused or unsatisfied. So he made up his mind to travel through many, many mountains to go and visit this special teacher. It was a very long journey, and after many months of difficult travel, suffering much hardship, the seeker finally arrived at the remote temple, said to be the residence of this great teacher. And so he knocked on the temple gate and respectfully asked the monk, who was the gatekeeper, where he could find the master. "Oh," said the monk, "I think he's fishing right now." The seeker was very surprised. Fishing, he thought. He felt very disappointed because good Buddhist monks were never supposed to fish or hunt, as that was considered to be causing harm to living things, and so it was against their vows. How could a great Buddhist teacher be fishing? By using a fishing pole, of course, replied the gatekeeper. He always goes fishing around this time of the day. You can find him about a mile over there, that way, on the other side of that big wide river. So now the seeker was even more confused than before, but he was still determined to complete his journey and speak to this great teacher and to ask his important question. He arrived at the bank of this wide river, and sure enough, he could see on the other side, sitting on the bank with a fishing pole in his hand, this great teacher. But the person he saw didn't look at all like a great teacher. In fact, he looked like an ordinary old man with not much on his mind except catching fish. And he didn't look as though he had that on his mind either, because he was sound asleep and snoring loudly. Nevertheless, the seeker called out to him, "Teacher!" The teacher didn't respond, but continued to snore even louder. Again he called, "Teacher!" The teacher woke from his sleep and squinted across the river. "Oh," he said, "what can I do for you, my son?" The seeker called back to him, "I've been journeying for such a long time to see you. I went up and down over mountains for months, maybe even years, just so I could finally get to see you and to ask a question that has been tormenting me for so long." "You came all the way just to see me?" replied the teacher. "That's strange, but go ahead. What is it that you want to ask me?" "This is my question, so please give me an answer," said the seeker. "How can I certainly and without fail, without doubt, cross over to the other shore?" The master was still holding on to his fishing pole, but he listened to this question and looked quite puzzled for a moment. Slowly he scratched his head. Finally he called back across the river, "But you're already on the other shore." Well, what does this story mean? The seeker mistakenly thought that he wanted certainty, that he wanted a clear path to fulfillment in his life. He wanted to go from this world that he thought was not so good to another world, which he thought was the meaning of the other shore, where everything would be perfect. The seeker wasn't able to appreciate the life that he had. He wanted to find his life somewhere else on the other shore, which he thought was a better life and a better place to be. Although we often spend our lives wishing we were somewhere else or even someone else, we don't think of who we are, always hoping and wishing for something better. It is very easy to think like this, especially during this time of the pandemic, that has been lasting for months on end. But we should reflect on all the wonderful things that we have right now. We are finding ways to connect with each other. We can see each other's faces in ways new to many of us. We learn that we are able to learn and experience new ways and things. Through all this, we confirm that all of life is interconnected and interdependent. Through innumerable causes and conditions, we are living in the here and now, appreciating every moment. The teacher who sought the secret sought in this story was a true teacher. He just lived and appreciated his life fully. He was totally at peace, fishing down at the river's edge. When he said, "But you're already on the other shore," we experience this when we truly appreciate the gift of life that we are constantly receiving from our family and friends, the plants and animals, the sun and the air, the wind and the rain that nourishes us. Recalling the words written by a Myohobo, the former Benmen, which maybe someday I'll do a Dharma talk on him. He wrote that the mountains are the same and the roads are just as they were in the past. All that has changed is my heart. So we live each day expressing our boundless benevolence to Amida Buddha for this realization by reciting the Nembutsu, knowing that we are already on the other shore, even though realizing that we are still foolish beings. Please join me once again in Gassho as I read the words of Shinran Shonin. I am without shame and self-reproach and completely lack a mind of truth and sincerity. Because the name is directed by Amida, however, it fills the 10 quarters, embracing me completely, bringing me to the other shore. Namo Amida Butsu.
Embraced in Buddha's
Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. The cloud transforms into rain. The flower transforms into earth. The earth transforms and becomes a flower, watered by the rain that was the cloud. Nothing exists on its own. Namo Amidavus. Namo Amidavus. Namo Amidavus.
Well, thank you very much for attending this virtual Sunday service. Our next speaker next week will be Bob Nishita. Please be careful and be well. And we hope to see you again next Sunday. Thank you. Bye.